Good morning, Cerebral NFL fans. My name is Stephen Hyder. This is Gate City Sports Media Company. Happy Wednesday, January 19th, 2022 to everybody. Today's topic. We're going to talk about futures contract, guys. This is a larger conversation really about filming and shaping, if not filming, but shaping the Philadelphia Eagles roster, if you will. And it starts really with taking an eye towards the practice squad and giving those guys that you think have value across the league a futures contract. So obviously you guys know expansion of the practice squad has led to 16 players. So we gave 11 guys future contracts. I want to start by prefacing this point right here, guys. Just because these other guys have not received a futures contract does not mean they will not get one in time. But I do think it says something about the way the Eagles value these guys. Because basically when you allow guys like John Hightower, Keyshawn Johnson, Luke Juriga, Casey Tucker, and Raekwon Williams the opportunity to still negotiate, because they are technically practice squad players. They are free to negotiate with other teams on futures deals themselves, right? That's a possibility now. Like you locked up 11 dudes that you didn't want that to happen. You wanted to have the exclusive rights with them. And these other guys, you kind of said, if we lose them, we can live without them. Let's talk. I know you guys are probably starting from the jump like, Gate, slow down. What the heck is a futures contract? Why don't we start there, my guy? I got you guys. So basically, I talked about it at the beginning. It's a claiming of rights to a player, right? It's to stop any negotiations from other teams, all right? Think about when a guy is on your active roster and he's under 4 years in the league and you give him an IRFA tag, exclusive rights free agency. It's kind of a workaround that's similar to that, but this pertains to strictly the guys that are, practice squad members, if you will. So this really started with the acceleration of, I think it was like the 2011 or 2012 CBA kind of allowed this stuff to come into play, guys. And it really accelerated in the 2013 offseason where you started seeing organizations give future contracts out to guys. What it is it's a minimum salary. You have to give them the minimum salary, which I do believe is like $705,000. But that does not kick in against your cap, guys, until the league calendar year, which is going to be like mid-March, guys, somewhere between probably March 11th and like 15th, somewhere in between that time frame is normally when the league calendar starts, guys. So once the league calendar starts, you have to carry 90 guys going into, your camp and all that stuff. You have 51 guys in the offseason that count against you, right? So these guys are not really affecting us in terms of that 51 because no matter what, you're going to pay 51 guys a minimum salary, right? So it doesn't really affect your money like that. But these guys were all on expiring contracts. And that's what it took us to. I want to get into John Hightower, though. John Hightower is a fascinating study here, guys, because I'm a little disappointed how things have worked out with John Hightower. To begin with, I just want to talk about the money that John Hightower has kind of given up, right? Because to be honest with you, when he was drafted by the Eagles, he signed a 4-year, $3,595,052 contract, which averaged about $780,000 a year. So just above what the league minimum salary would have been. He would have been above that. After he got cut back in August and then signed to the practice squad, his contract came out to be about I think it was like $97,000 or $99,733, guys, which came up with a base of $165,600. He went from basically, let's just call 200,000, let's just go 200,000 in the roundup. So he lost like over $500,000, guys, on the season. It's crazy the amount of money that reduced him down to by not making the roster. We all kind of knew that was going to happen, though. We know that's kind of the fact of reality with practice squad players. So I'll be honest with you. I said I was a little disappointed because if you go back to guys that were scouting at the time, okay, I didn't do my big board back then. I'm working on doing a big board, guys, for the 2022 draft. It'll be the first year I release a big board. But when you go back to guys like Mike Renner's 200, like his 250 player big board, dude, John Hightower was 101 on that big board. He was one spot away from the top 100 players on Mike Renner's board, right? It's just crazy. Just think about this. Jalen Reagor was 21 on that big board. Quez Watkins was 229 on that big board. John Hightower was 101. Right now, the only guy that looks like he's got an actual future in the NFL, and I think there's still hope for Reagor, maybe not in Philly, but he probably is going to catch on somewhere else. I mean, the talent's still there. It's just I don't know what to make of this guy. But with that said, isn't it a little ironic that the 229th ranked guy on a top 250 board is the dude that clearly looks like he's got a future in the NFL? The other two guys, I don't know. I still think both of those dudes can play, but there's some maturity issue with both of these guys in Hightower and Reagor. I want to talk about how I scouted him. When I scouted John Hightower, I spent a lot of time on John Hightower. And I'll be honest with you, I thought that this young man, what really stood out to me was his measurables were pretty good. He had a good vertical, like 38.5-inch vertical, 6'1", 6'2", good frame to him. Not the biggest guy, only like 185, 190 pounds. But I thought his get off was special, guys. Let me explain what I say when I say get off was special, guys. This dude's 10-yard split was a 149. It's the 98th percentile, guys. You might be like, dang, that number sounds familiar, Gate. Where did we hear that number before? Kyle Pitts. The dude had to get off of Kyle Pitts. You could see it on film. If you've ever watched him, you could see it on film. He's special in terms of the get off. The guy's 10-yard split was nuts. Chris Perez, exactly. This is the only time I've ever agreed with an NFL comparison. They comp John Hightower to be comparable to Kenny Stills, which I think is the only time I've really ever agreed upon that with somebody. I think it was a really, really good comp, actually. What I will say is he was really good at varying his speeds on vertical routes. He was really good at setting defensive backs up with that because he has that tremendous get off. He can get up to speed faster than most dudes can. And I think that caught people a little bit. He was actually, believe it or not, pretty good in screen games. He caught 15 screens, in his senior season at Boise State. He was pretty good in the screen game. His average depth of target was crazy impressive, guys. It was over 17 yards. I mean, he was definitely getting target down the field. However, I want to point out a few things that really bothered me about this guy when I broke down the film. Despite the narrative, I thought he tracked the ball okay. I don't think he was horrible at tracking the football, but his body positioning was all wrong. His body positioning was just all wrong when he got there. Like, he got in line to go get the football. He tracked it. He just couldn't catch it. I thought that was something that stood out, that anything that was outside his frame, I mean, if it was not like within the shoulder range of him, you had to kind of hold your breath a little bit. You had to hold your breath. I mean, if it was just slightly off the shoulder area, it was not a guarantee John Hightower was coming down with a contested catch. I thought his contested catch ability was a little shaky, to be quite honest. He had a really high drop rate on those type of plays. He had 4 on the season, and I think pretty much all of them were in those type of situations. He really did not face press coverage at Boise State. I had a hard time finding him in press coverage on film, and I think I ended up watching like 8 games on John Hightower because he transferred from a community college and then came into Boise State. He had 2 years there. And it just, I just didn't see a ton of man coverage, guys. I couldn't find it on his film. It was a little concerning. Not a lot of production. Had a really good senior year, but overall, I think we're really only judging 80 receptions coming out of Boise State. It just wasn't a ton of production, guys. There was definitely some question marks about John Hightower coming out. With that said, this is an interesting situation here. I'm looking at this Philadelphia Eagles receiving core, and I don't know, man. I don't know what to make of this because you got J.J. Arcega-Whiteside still technically under contract. We'll see how that works out. I'm feeling he might get cut once we get to training camp. You got Jalen Reagor still under contract. Greg Ward Jr. is technically a free agent. You have Smitty, and that's it. Hightower's gone. They did sign Deion Kane. So I'll name the players that they signed the futures contracts for. Here's 11 players. Coyote Owasika, Deion Kane, Christian Ellis, Craig James, Matt Leo, Cameron Malview, Jarrett Maiden, sorry guys, Mac McCain, Jacoby Stevens, Noe Togi, and Marvin Wilson are the 11 guys that they signed the futures contracts. And then the 5 guys they left off the future contracts list so far. Let me just caveat that. John Hightower, Keyshawn Johnson, Luke Juriga, Casey Tucker, Raekwon Williams all got left off of that futures contract so far. They could still go back and sign them. But clearly they were more concerned about these 11 players being signed by another team than these 5 players that were left off. What a disappointing way this would be to end John Hightower's time here in Philadelphia. Because somewhere deep down, I still feel like if you can get this young man to mature, and I know he's not that young. He was already kind of an older prospect coming out, to be fair. To be fair about the full thing, he was an older prospect coming out. But in saying that, it just would be such an unceremonious way of ending this because I think all of us recognize there is actual talent with John Hightower. But man, it was just so awkward in games, guys. He really heard footsteps at times. Like, I don't normally like to call players out on that, but John Hightower was hearing safeties coming over, and he would tail away from that football to see where that hit was coming from. And it's a sad occurrence because I still think John Hightower while he was slight of body frame and we didn't have a ton of film of him playing against man press, I thought he was good enough on his get off, that fast get off he has. I thought he was fast enough to honestly to beat man press. I thought he would have been okay if you got him in there and you taught him how to handle guys that are more physical than he is. I thought he would have been okay. He's going to have some struggles early on because really physical dudes are going to put him on his backside a little bit. But I thought if you can get him to that point where he understands how to use that speed to beat physical guys at the line of scrimmage, he could have been something in the league. I don't know, guys. I mean, it sucks. It sucks to have this happen the way it's happening. It is what it is, though, guys. I mean, it's not like we're losing anything special per se, but I just don't know that our receiving core is that great. And I do find it interesting that out of John Hightower, Keyshawn Johnson, and Deon Cain, the Eagles stuck with Deon Cain, who's got experience playing with the Colts. He's a bigger guy, too. He's like 6'2", 200-ish. He's a little bigger, a little bit bigger, a little bit more well put together from an NFL frame standpoint. But it's really interesting, guys, that happened. It's very, very interesting. All right, guys, let's get into some questions and some comments, guys. Drew Johnson, what's good, my guy? How you doing? Chris Perez, how you doing, my guy? I owe you an apology from the other day, Chris. Apparently, I didn't realize. I'm old, Chris. I'm old, bro. I didn't realize that a /S meant sarcastic, meaning sarcasm. And my wife had to tell me that basically I'm a goober and I don't understand modern language. So I apologize, Chris. Eagle Slayer 95 said, "Good morning, coach. Keep up the streams. Big fan." Thank you. I appreciate that. What's up, Messiah? How you doing, buddy? For y'all that don't know, Messiah is a young man that's out there as a quarterback trying to grow and trying to learn, man. I really appreciate you tuning in, Messiah. Messiah said, "Look at my comment from yesterday's video. It's a good one, but good morning." I'll take a look at it, buddy. No problem. Jalen, what's up, man? He said, wide receiver Keyshawn Johnson, offensive tackle Casey Tucker, center Luke Driga, defensive tackle Raekwon Williams are not given future. Yeah, all of them are basically left out from futures contracts. Interesting, man. I liked him coming out. He gets separate. Exactly, Chris. The same way I felt. It's like, okay, there's definitely some limitations and some clear things he's got to work on. But I did feel confident that he would get there. And to be honest, the Eagles were not the only team that was high on John Hightower. John Hightower was a known commodity throughout the scouting world. It's kind of disappointing that he didn't make it. I mean, I think locally in the fan base, everybody was really excited about Quez Watkins. But behind the scenes in the scouting world, people were really excited about John Hightower, to be quite honest. Jalen said, easy way to put it is if you play Madden franchise mode and your whole practice squad goes into the offseason. Yeah. Goes with you into the offseason. He reminded me of Kenny Stills. That's a very good comp. Like I said, it was the only time I've ever heard a comp where I was like, yeah, that makes like a ton of sense. Like that's exactly the comp I would give him. Cal Bundy said, it's not ironic to me because all the numbers and calculations don't measure heart. Right, but Cal, it is ironic when you looked at his film and you saw what he could do. Like this is not a guy who was limited as an athlete. Jalen said Hightower had awful drops. He did. Contested catch area, Jalen. It was hard to watch. Like, I remember the one play where he was in the left corner end zone. And, I mean, he gained the proper separation, goes to get the ball. The defender's way out of position, has the ball all the way down until he gets close to the actual goal line. And then ball doesn't come down with it. And I was like, oh, man, that's hard to watch on film, to be honest with you. Exactly. His body positioning was so awkward. Yeah, he was not a contested catch guy. Just was not his strong suit. Jake Gets Cake says, I had high hopes for Hightower. Dude got separation so easily. Same thing, Jake. I felt the same way that, man, he's slight of frame, and he's definitely scared of getting hit. But, man, there was something there. There was definitely something there. He just, I don't know, man. It's got to be a maturity thing with him. Michael said, Jason Avant said that it's a dedication thing with Hightower. He doesn't really love football. It's possible, man. I mean, some guys have other opportunities, and maybe they favor those opportunities. Could be. Could be. Drew said, me too. Natiro said, did you watch the All-22 already? I've watched some of it, guys. I'm not all the way through the All-22. It takes a lot of hours to take notes and to do what I do. There is one play in particular I definitely want to talk about, and maybe today, maybe tomorrow. I'm going to try to get it out to you guys today. It's where I think it's a really good illustration of what I was talking about having a bad rhythm step, about not throwing the ball with anticipation. And to be honest with you, some guys credited Jalen Hurts in terms of like, oh, like this was a good throw. I don't agree with that take. I actually think it was a really bad rhythm step. Jake Gets Cake says, when they drafted Rager, I was upset. I didn't think he'd be this bad, but I didn't think he'd be great either. Yeah, kind of in the middle there. Sam Shady Sports said, you think that they will still cut JJ even though he has developed a role in special teams this season? Still thinking a move to tight end makes sense for him. Bulk up 10 to 15 pounds. I mean, look, Sam, anything is possible. You know, you can never say fully, you know what I mean, one way or the other. But I will say that I think he stands a really good chance of being cut because he's kind of coming up on that time frame where he's got one more year left under contract anyways. And I'm not too sure that the role on the team's going to fit the draft value. And I think they'll probably, if there's an opportunity to move on, Sam, I think they will. Chris said, it's all good, Steve. Coach, what's hanging? Looking forward to talking football with you. Hey, Caleb, man, I was talking about it yesterday. Caleb, I called you the wrong name, by the way. I'm sorry about that. But Jalen and Caleb, I want to get you two guys together, and I want to get you guys some film. And I want you guys to break down some of Jeff Stoutland's, blocking technique, what's going on, how he uses the offensive line. I want to get your two guys' minds around that to help kind of bring some stuff into the community so people can see that. So I'm going to hit you and Jalen up, Caleb, and we'll talk about setting aside some time, and I'll get you guys the film to look over before we go live. So that way you guys can kind of have some show notes ready to go, things you want to talk about. Jalen said he definitely wants to take a look at the Eagles inside of the screen game and what's going on from a blocking standpoint, because basing off of some of Trey Thomas's comments. So if you have a particular game or something in particular you want to look at, just let me know, man, and I'll get you guys the film on that stuff. I did learn S/ means sarcastic until you just said it. So what does that make me? An old soul, Jalen. You got an old soul, sir. Because I definitely didn't know that either. JJ has to go. It's crazy. He was great in college, but when he got to the NFL, he was lost. Everyone is faster and stronger. What's up, Monica Lane? How you doing? Love your content, my friend. What do you think of this running back lineup for 2022? Boston, Miles, and whoever. It's possible. Boston Scott is a restricted free, or not restricted. I don't know if he's restricted per se, but he is a free agent, Monica. It is possible that might be something that happens. They could go in the draft, or they could try to find a veteran inside of free agency. I think they need a contact balance back. I think they need someone that gives them what Jordan Howard gives them, but maybe is a little bit more durable than Jordan Howard. It has the explosion. And this is coming from somebody that I'm a huge Jordan Howard fan. I like Jordan Howard a lot, but I do think that his durability is a concern. Jalen said, so in short, we have one good wide receiver, and one wide receiver has to be here based on drafts. Yeah, you're right. I mean, that's kind of what's going on. I mean, I don't know if they can get fancy Jalen with the way that they can manipulate perception about Jalen Reagor, attach Jalen Reagor to another trade. Not that Jalen Reagor is going to be the deciding factor, but the Eagles can beat their chest and say some crazy crap like, oh, this trade would have never happened if we didn't attach Jalen Reagor to the trade. You get what I mean, Jalen? I could see something like that. But I got to be honest with you. I mean, I don't know that there's any team out there that's really looking at Jalen Reagor and assigning any kind of real value to him. So, I mean, it's kind of hard to imagine how you can move on from him. Chris said Eagles need to target Smith like Wentz targeted Fulgham in that Pittsburgh game last year. He needs to be like Michael Thomas. Yeah, I mean, you spend a top 10 pick on somebody, Chris. I think you got a point. I mean, you definitely probably need to figure out a way of getting them involved in your game plan a lot earlier. We got a bunch of good third options. Maybe. It just goes to show you the transition from college to pro is not easy for some. That's a very good point, Andrew. Absolutely. Is the play you're talking about the in to Watkins that was behind? Yes, Jalen. You're onto something. It's the in behind Jalen or behind Quez Watkins. What's up, Mike? How you doing, buddy? So you're talking about the Reagor turnover on downs. That one was a footwork issue, but that's not the one I'm referring to, Mike. There's one where he's behind Quez. He's a little behind Quez on it, and it's majorly due to his footwork. But yes, that one is as well, Mike. He had a footwork issue with that one. He didn't hit that rhythm step quite correctly. Jake said, from what you've seen, has Hurts got better at reading progressions, or is he stuck on his first read? So we kind of talked about this a little bit yesterday, Jake, to where I think it's a little nuanced here. Yes and no. I do think that you can make the claim that when he hits his rhythm step and the ball should be out of your hand to your first read. If you're progression reading, then he's late, right? He's late to doing that. He's waiting for a dude to break open, which is causing him to hang longer on that first read. And then by the time he basically gathers himself, he hitches and starts to look to the second read, it's too late. It's too late in the progression. He's held on to the first read too long. But by design, the way you do progression reads, by design, you're going to lock onto your first read longer. It's kind of one of the downsides to progression reads. What up, Speed Eagle 2.25? What's good, buddy? How you doing, man? For sure, Jeff Stoutland and my O-line coach had a very similar schemes and even techniques. That's cool, man. He said, and bet, looking forward to it. Awesome, guys. I'm excited to get you guys looking at film, and I'm excited to learn, guys, to be honest with you. Because, like, that's one area I want to learn more about, is I want to learn more about offensive line play, because it's so freaking important. And we can keep spinning this stuff off, guys. I know you offensive linemen know defensive line technique and stuff too. I know Jalen played a little defensive line in high school and stuff, so we can definitely do some different series where we talk about offensive line. We can cue in on certain players if y'all want. We can talk about defensive line. Speedy Eagle 2.25 said, "What's your opinion on Rager?" I don't know what to make of him, Speedy Eagle. I liked him a lot coming out of college, although I knew he had limitations versus man coverage. That stupid hesitation step he does versus man press, he did that in college too. And, you know, I definitely said that he's far better at the top of the route stem than he is at the release off the line of scrimmage. T. Higgins was like phenomenal at the release off the line of scrimmage. So it was like kind of the opposite there. He just hasn't improved, Speedy Eagle. He hasn't gotten any better. And I was a big believer in Rager. I thought Rager was going to be quite good. It hasn't happened. And here's the thing. Howie in the front office has to be better about missing on guys. Like, you're going to miss on dudes. It happens. There are some guys that you can't predict everything. You can't predict every single outcome, right? Like, you're doing the best you can from an evaluation standpoint, but all evaluations can be inherently flawed. It just, you know, you're only as good as the data you get that's put before you. And sometimes dudes have really complex data points to try to analyze. Like, Jalen Rager had like 3 different quarterbacks, right? I mean, there was just a really crazy situation with him from the quarterback play and the offensive play calling. The conference he played in, he just didn't play against a ton of man coverage. And then when he played against man coverage, he wasn't particularly good at it. You know what I mean? I think the Eagles have to be better at realizing when a mistake has been made. And then I'm not saying you cut a first-round pick. It's really difficult to do contractually. But move on. Find somebody else that can come in here and make that young man earn it. That's where I'm at with it, Speedy Eagle. Make Rager earn his way back onto the field. You just can't hold the spot for him no more. He's going to have to earn that playing time, in my opinion. Even if you look, I heard somebody give a hot take that said, even if you have to keep him inactive. You know what? At this point in time, I don't disagree. Because if he can't help you on special teams, if he can't help you through the run game doing some stuff like misdirection stuff, if he can't help you as a receiver, then you got to earn it, man. You're going to have to show us that you can do it. And if that means making you inactive to get the point across to you, you know what? I'm honestly in favor of it at this point. Andrew said, "What happened to Jordan Howard this postseason game? Disappointing. The Eagles need to address this." I think Jordan Howard wasn't right. I still think he had issues with that stinger. It's eerily similar to the injury he had in 2019, Andrew. So he had a stinger that put him out for months, and he ended up having nerve damage to the shoulder and neck area. And I think he had the same thing, to be honest. I think it's the same exact thing. And I think he forced himself back into the Washington game because we just didn't have a lot of options at running back. And I don't think he was right. And then to get into this playoff game, and I don't think he had a single handoff. I mean, they targeted him on a reception, you know, so he had a target. I saw him a few times in pass pro. He didn't really have a big role. You know, he didn't have a role, and I think that might be due to injuries. Speedy Eagle said, "I looked at Rager's film versus the Buccaneers. He can't beat man coverage." No, it's far past just the Buccaneers. It's been an entire season thing with him. Why do people want a star wide receiver in free agency when we target Smith like 3 times per game? I do think that there's an element, though, to it, Natiro, where guys have to get better in terms of winning off the line of scrimmage, you know, getting that to present a target for a guy. So, I mean, Nick Sirianni he balances things. Nobody's like fully just progression read and then never coverage read. There's always a balance between that stuff. And then you can blend and mix those concepts together. So, I mean, it's never as simple as that, but I do think that Nick has Jalen doing a lot of progression reads. And if a dude can't win early in the route on a progression read, that's a problem. You get what I mean, Natero? So I think that's kind of why they want they want the security of knowing that you have a guy out there that can clearly beat man press coverage. You don't have to worry about that. You know what I mean? I think they just want that security to do that. Now, do you need to spend the kind of money you would have to spend to get some of these dudes to prove that point? Probably not. You could probably go with mid-tier guys that have proved it in the league. Mike Williams, I would call a mid-tier guy. He's not a guy that's probably going to cost you more. I would guess Mike Williams would be under $10 million. I don't think he's going to get paid like that. I think he'd be like, I don't know, I'd say somewhere between 5 and 8 million, just depending on the contract and the interest in free agency. Jake Gets Cake says, from what I saw this year, the O-line was great at run blocking, but not pass blocking. Did you see that also? I think it's complex, but yes, I do think that there were clear struggles, Jake, in pass pro. With that said, hard to say because we really reverted back into a running team, so there wasn't a ton of opportunities down the stretch to really analyze it. Cal said, give the Giants a pick and Rager to the Giants for Kadarius Toney. They don't want him anyways. I would take Kadarius Toney over Rager. I would also take what's below here in terms of Brandon Ayuk over him as well. The 49ers would become, I believe, Rager was higher on their board than Brandon Ayuk. Do you think that they would go for that just because they don't think that Brandon Ayuk, or they don't think that Rager is the same kind of problem in terms of coaching and off the field that Brandon Ayuk is? I don't know what happened with Brandon Ayuk. I just know that the 49ers did not care for some of the stuff that's going on towards coaching and towards some of the crap that happens off field. But I don't remember him doing anything like stupid. I don't remember him doing anything off the field that was like horrendous. You know what I mean, Jalen? I don't know. But I would definitely take Brandon Ayuk because I think he's the better player. I think he's clearly the better player at this point. What's up, Sam? He said, what do you think about Alexander Madison in Minnesota as a replacement for Howard? He seems to fill in well every time Cook is hurt. Hard to say, Sam. I mean, it's very early in the process of me. I haven't really got into running backs like that. Right now, I'm really digging through it. Like I'm just about all the way through 3 games from the 2020 season. I do one season pass and into the current season on quarterbacks. Once I get past that, I'm going to start going out to the skill position players. It'll be like corners and wide receivers, running backs, stuff like that, safeties, all that kind of stuff. What's up? The Bull Philly says, it's draft time. We can't wait for the new content. I'm working on guides, I don't know if I'm going to do top 250, but I'm definitely going to put together a top 100 board. A lot of stuff's coming up, guys. There's a lot of stuff coming up. Chris said, in my opinion, Eagles need to go for broke next year. NFC is wide open. Every team is beatable. Dallas losing a ton of players. Got to hit this draft. Got to sign a playmaker. We should really go for next year. I have the cap table stuff pulled up, guys. I can go over the cap table. I do think that there's some complexity here. What's up, Jeffrey? He said, good morning, Steve. I was listening to Seth Joyner earlier, and he made a great point. Kyler, Jalen, and Mac Jones weren't ready for those playoff games. Yeah, clearly they weren't. They weren't, Jeffrey. That's true. It's very true. Chris said, Jalen, where did you play high school ball? Somewhere in Virginia. That's all I really know. Tony missed a bunch of games due to COVID and injuries. Talking about Justin Jefferson. Chris. What's up, Show Enough? How you doing, buddy? Red Eagle said, Oasika is a future star in our O-line with Stout coaching him. There's nothing you said in that sentence that doesn't make me happy because I have been basically driving the Oasika bus for the fan bus here for a while, guys. I will tell you that you probably shouldn't take me at merit when it comes to Oasika because I'm heavily invested in him becoming a star here in Philadelphia. But I do think they're going to bring in competition. I think Oasika is going to have to really push if he wants to make the roster this upcoming year. What's up, Natiro? He said, Chad Johnson said Rager will explode in year 3. Look, Natiro, anything's possible. I'm not going to say that it can't happen. I don't see it from a film standpoint. I mean, Rager's got to do a lot. He's going to have to do a lot in the offseason, man. And he's just not good at beating man coverage. It's horrible to watch, man. I mean, I hope he does, Natiro, because he's probably going to be a Philadelphia Eagle. And Rager becoming a legitimate wide receiver is in the Philadelphia Eagles' best interest. But I don't have a ton of faith in it, to be honest, Natiro. Nice. Maybe making him earn it will make something click inside him. I'd love to see Rager do well. Me too, Chris. I mean, I want the guy to succeed. I love this college film. I thought what really disappoints me, Chris, about Jalen Rager is when I looked at his college film, the one thing that I thought he was spectacular at was anything yak related. I thought he was incredibly good at yak yardage in college, and it has not produced in the NFL. It's a shame that there's really nothing here that analyze that paints a favorable light. It's really disappointing. Jeffrey said, Steve, you really look at, we aren't very good in picking wide receivers. We only hit once in a while. It's like living again with Andy Reid, to be honest. Is it the scouts who are missing the best players? No, I'll say that the scouts were on to Justin Jefferson. The scouts wanted Justin Jefferson. The wide receiver coach in Philadelphia, from what my understanding is here, guys, mind you, I'm not in the front office, I'm not in the room, but I do know that Aaron Moorhead had a personal relationship while he was coaching down at Texas A&M, I believe. He had a personal relationship with Monty Rager, who's the father of Jalen Rager. Monty Rager had a personal relationship with the front office, being a former Eagle. I think that basically Aaron Moorhead and a few members of the coaching staff beat the table and said, like, look, man, like, Justin Jefferson's only going to be a slot receiver. Jalen Rager's got a higher, ceiling. They beat the table for that narrative, and I think they got what they wanted in spite of what happened. And then when you look at the other guy, DK Metcalf being the other guy, and the JJ Arcega-Whiteside. I mean, JJ Arcega-Whiteside, like, it was a little, that one's hard to imagine it went as badly as it did. I don't think anyone could predict it to be this bad, to be fair to the scouts. But also, I think the medical department, our sports science department, was more so responsible for not picking DK Metcalf. I think that the Eagles had him removed from their board because of the neck injury. And I don't think that had anything to do with scouting. I think that had to do with the medical grade on him. You know what I mean, Jeffrey? What's up, Mr. Michael NY? I appreciate the $5 super chat, buddy. I'm sorry, I'm trying to click on it, but it keeps moving. Mr. Michael NY said, Rager put on too much weight, it appears. He looks slow out there. They better draft guys from the SEC and Big Ten until they get it together. I mean, I can understand your point, which is stick to an area where there's a better probability that the player, you can easily scout those things, right? Because they're going to play good competition in the SEC. They're going to play good competition in the Big Ten. That they're going to face man press coverage. You have more of an opportunity to see them play in situations that makes the scouting easier. I do agree with that perspective, Mr. NY. I think you're correct in that. What's up, Kivo? How you doing, buddy? Kivo said, Hightower is from my area. Used to work with his cousin, and he told me when we drafted him that he was young and immaturity has been his issue for a long time. It's just a part of him. Man, that really stinks because the talent's there. That really stinks, Kivo, and you're probably right. You're probably right. It's probably not just something that popped up. I mean, there's a reason why he was rated 101st and yet slid to the 5th round. You know what I mean? And even there's questions of how early he would have gone in the 5th round. If the Eagles passed on him there, it's possible he might have gone to the back end of the 5th, into the 6th. Chris said, do any receivers jump out to you in the draft? Hoping we can get Wan'Dale Robinson from Kentucky in the 3rd round, but to me, he's identical to Jameson Williams. Mine is coming from Bama. I like Pickens a lot if he's healthy. I don't know how healthy Pickens is, Chris, to be honest, because he's coming back from a pretty major, injury. So it's hard to say where his health is going to be. But if that guy like that kind of slips into the 2nd round, I definitely think that that's a player that you should have pretty high on your board. You named Jameson Williams, who I think is tremendous after the catch. He's definitely one of those guys, if you're going to run these stupid tunnel screens and stuff, like, he's going to give you that ability. There's a few guys in here. The real tall kid, he plays where does he play at? Treylon Burks. I think he's pretty good, man. I think he's sneaky good for his size after the catch. He has I'll tell you who he reminds me of a little bit. I don't know how the physical measurements are going to come in. I don't know how he's going to stack up to Michael Pittman Jr., because Michael Pittman Jr. at 6'4", 225 had a 1.51 10-yard split. That's really good for a dude that big. Treylon Burks kind of reminds me after the catch of Michael Pittman Jr. That's a guy that I definitely have some interest in. Chris Perez says, if we get Devontae Adams, you better believe he'd be targeted way more than 3 times a game. boy, if they don't, I'd be pretty ticked off, man. Because like, what were we doing? What was the point? But Gate Smith is very good at separation. It's baffling how we don't involve him more. Yeah, I mean that's a coaching thing, Natiro. It's kind of a coaching thing from the way the system's set up. And Nick admitted it. Nick admitted, like, dude, it was a big mistake what I did. There's no, he said that, look, getting knocked out of the, we had 3 consecutive possessions before we really advanced the football, and then knocked us out of the way we had the game plan structure to get Smitty involved. But then he said, in reality, I kind of have to eat this criticism. I have to take it because, truth be told, I should have involved him earlier in downs and earlier in the situations. So, I mean, he admitted that it was a mistake. It's great that he admitted it. It's great that he's like, look, this is a problem and I got to fix it. However, admitting it is one thing, and it's a step forward. The next part is going into 2022, Smitty's got to be involved more. I agree. There's just no excuse. You got to involve him more in the offense. Andrew said, Creator's performance deserves for him to sit down and let others like Watkins emerge. He will either wake up and fly right or wash out. Yeah, I mean, pretty much. Jake said, before the season, were you worried about Smith staying healthy? I was kind of surprised he played every game. Dude's tougher than he looks. I kind of talked in depth about that aspect of it, Jake. I definitely thought there's an element of legitimate concern when a dude is a $160 playing wide receiver. But I did talk about the fact that he's really good at creating space. He's really good at sitting down in zones, and he's really good at avoiding contact. So even though he's only 160 pounds, he does all the things right in the modern NFL to stay healthy. If this was 2003, or we'll just go to 2001, since we'll take a 20-year standpoint here, would have been a lot different. I definitely think there would have been far more a concern for that because dudes were allowed to clean your clock back then. There's no such thing as a defensive receiver, really. Chris said, there haven't been any stories about Ayuk doing anything bad. Yeah, I haven't heard, I've heard mumblings from 49er fans that said that he's got some issues off the field. I just never heard what it was. I know that he's had issues with the coaching staff. I know they've hit heads. I mean, that's been reported about him hitting heads with the coaching staff, but I don't know. I mean, I guess I don't follow the story enough, Chris, to really have any kind of insight to it other than to know that I've heard 49er fans express that viewpoint. They were expressing it last season. Cal said, Rager feet be flapping like he runs on his heels. Why is he at that X spot? Don't make any sense to me. Out of necessity for it, Cal, to be honest. There's just not, none of these dudes are going to separate versus man press if they get real physical. Now, Devontae is a good enough route runner. So where Devontae can at least get your hands off of him because he's just really good at releasing off the line of scrimmage. But the rest of those guys, you know what I mean? We just don't have that guy. We don't have that guy that can really beat man press. And to be honest with you, like I said, it's really technique with Rager. He's got the lower body strength to beat man press coverage. The problem with Rager is he does a stupid hesitation move that allows defenders to get into his body. And then you're off balance and you're trying to fight through. And by this point in time, if I'm the quarterback and I'm going into a 3-step or a 5-step rhythm step, and I'm looking, you're my first read, I have to remove you. I can't throw the football to you like that. I have to come off of that read now. And that's really his problem. If quarterback Matt Carroll is sitting there at 15, do you pull the trigger? Nah. I personally, Pope Platinum, I'm not a fan. I'm not a huge fan of this quarterback class. I'm not saying none of these dudes won't turn out to be good. I'm not saying that at all. But I don't think any of these dudes are legitimate top 16 picks at the quarterback position. Will they go top 16? Absolutely. 1 or 2 of these dudes is more than likely going to go top 16. I have none of these dudes graded as highly as I've had a couple of guys in the past draft classes, to be honest. Jake Gets Cake says, also, Howie gets all the blame for these bad draft picks, but I've heard Jeff had a lot to do with picking JJ and Doug went at Rager. Chris said, I got some pink Himalayan salt with white truffle. It's fire. We need a veteran wide receiver presence. Losing Ertz took experience away from those young guys. We just need a guy that can separate and win. You got coaches. The coaches should be bringing these guys along. They should be making, Aaron Moorhead should be making recommendations in terms of getting private coaches to these guys in the offseason. You just got to get a guy that can win. You got to get a guy that can win versus coverage. Many mock drafts have us drafting linebackers like Lloyd and Dean. I disagree that Howie will draft them that high, but Gannon's scheme does favor blitzing linebackers. What are your opinions on linebackers in the first? I think if Nakobe Dean is there, I could see it happening. If Nakobe Dean is there in the tier, and I don't think that's going to happen, by the way. If Nakobe Dean is there, I could see it. I could see the Eagles pulling I could see the Eagles making that selection. However, would I bet money on it? No. I mean, Natiro, those people that say you're crazy for thinking that, they got history on their side. It's been what, since 79, since we took a linebacker in the first round? Like, hard to bet against history like that. But if there's ever a time to reverse that fortune of the history, there's any time to reverse that, it is this draft class, right? It's this situation with this defensive scheme where the importance matches the draft value, right? The Gambling Hippie said, do you think Reagor needs to be lower on the depth chart for a few years to slowly gain his confidence back? I don't necessarily know that putting him so the Gambling Hippie, I'm not too sure that putting him lower on the depth chart increases his confidence. You get what I mean? However, I'm also not giving this guy reps and opportunities he hasn't earned. He's not a part of anything. He's just not contributing. And if you can't contribute on the field, you know what I mean? Like, it's a waste of time. I would make him earn his way back. Now, if he starts to really develop and starts to gain confidence and it just becomes incredibly too hard to ignore the fact that he's clearly the next best guy up, then you got to play him, right? But I'm not giving him anything until he shows that. I can't say what they're going to do, but that's how I would treat it. Cal said Reagor is a map, his eyes small too, and they got him returning punts. The Gambling Hippie said Reagor needs to be a running back. I believe that's what he was in high school. The tier said, I disagree with the neck excuse for Metcalf. This is the same team that drafted Dickerson with his million ACL tears. I just think the Eagles weren't that high on Metcalf after seeing his poor 3-cone. No, Natir, I got to disagree with you because you're discounting how severe the neck injury was. ACLs can be come back from in today's NFL. Definitely a risk to take Dickerson in the second round. But I disagree because, number one, you're also talking about different medical staffs. Since 2017, there's been a big change in terms of the medical staffs that are here. And I know that Metcalf was 19, but there's been some turnover and changes in the medical staff. Mind you, the guy we have running it now came in 2020. So I got to disagree a little bit there. Drake London, USC. I don't dislike him, Gambling Hippie. I like Jalen Tolbert as a wide receiver pick. I see him as a top 3 guy coming out at that position. Andrew said Burke from Arkansas and the SEC, my choice too. What's up, Blue City? How you doing, buddy? He said, hey, Gate, do you think the Giants will hire the assistant GM for the Buffalo Bills or the director of player personnel from the Kansas City for the GM job? Well, I mean, your first opportunity is going to be that young man that's coming in from Buffalo because he's got a second interview. I don't know where they're at in terms of the DOPP from the Chiefs. Either of those are probably decent hires. Now, I will say is this. Who's your coaching target? Is Brian Dable your coaching target? Because Brian Dable is your coaching target, you're probably going with the guy from Buffalo. Or is, Mike Kafka or one of the Kansas City guys your coaching target in Kansas City? Because that's probably going to dictate who you hire as a GM. You know what I mean? What's up, Big Play? He said, how you feel about Drake London, 6'5" receiver? A little short in frame. Definitely better than people think. A little concerned anytime. Look, the Pac-12 always scares me. USC's had a really great track record, though. If there's any team you trust from the Pac-12 with receivers, it is USC. From Michael Pittman to Amon-Ra St. Brown. Look, I know people hate talking about Nelson Aguilar, but Nelson Aguilar was a really good route runner. It was the other stuff. It was mentally with Nelson Aguilar. But, I mean, they have produced NFL-caliber wide receivers. So I feel a little bit better when you talk about it being a USC guy from the Pac-12. You can make an argument that there's some Pittman-like ability there to run after the catch stuff. But Drake London, I thought, was really good at contested catches. I thought he used that frame pretty well. Dwayne said Mike Evans from the Chargers. Yeah, I like him. Jake Gets Cake says exactly. Jefferson was known as a slot guy, yet the Eagles moved Rager to the slot at times this year in desperation. Nah, he's a bum coach too. We don't want to hear what you could have done, Nick. Just do it. I disagree with you highly there. I think Nick Sirianni is actually a very good coach. I'm not going to read that, but dirty. Treylon Burks is the only wide receiver we should target if we draft one. We need a big body pass catcher, if anything. Well, I mean, there's more than just Treylon Burks that's a big body guy in this draft. But yes, I agree with the aspect that we need a guy that can honestly get up there and take contested catches and present a big target. We definitely need that type of guy. I mean, what I like about Treylon Burks is that he also adds the element of being pretty good at yak, yards after the catch. Drew said, I wanted to see Rager in 21 personnel as they did with JJ a couple of times, or give him a head start in motion as they have done before. I thought the same thing, Drew. That would have been a smart move, to be quite honest. I think if you could get away, if you get you get not JJ, but if you get Rager matched up on a linebacker, it's in your favor. I mean, he's not great. I agree, but he should beat a linebacker. I mean, come on. I thought that would have been a smart move too. I just don't, they did some 2-back sets here and there, but Nick really never fully leaned into that. Jake Gets Cake says, do you think Moorhead should be the wide receiver coach next year? It depends on how they feel about things, Jake, to be honest. I mean, I'm not gonna call for dudes to get fired. With that said, Kevin Patullo is a wide receiver coach. He already, Kevin Patullo already handles, your passing game. He's your passing game coordinator. It depends on how they feel, man. I could see them separating ways and sliding Kevin Patullo in as the wide receiver coach. I think it's possible, but at the same time, like, who knows? You know what I mean? How do you feel about the center from Iowa? He looks like a young Kelsey, in my opinion. I can see the Eagles getting him as his successor. Well, it's been a long time since the center was taken in the top 18 picks, and Linder Baum is scheduled to be that dude, the next dude up. I think there's a possibility, Glizzy. I mean, just knowing the Eagles draft history and how they value offensive, defensive line, I don't think you can ever rule it out. Jeffrey said, how long did it take Nelson to come around, but when still need to draft another wide receiver for? He came around by the 2017 season is really when he emerged. 2016, I would say, was probably a little disappointing, Doug's, first season as the head coach, because, at that time, we kind of had Jordan Matthews, we had Nelson Aguilar. We needed those two guys to be good, but they kept trying to play Nelson on the outside, and they finally learned their lesson and put him in the slot. And he was able to utilize that ability he has, that shiftiness. Danelle said, how much would it cost to trade up and get Kayvon? Depends on where he's going to get drafted, man. It's really hard to say. You can look at things like they have these calculators you can use to look at that kind of stuff, Donnell. You can look at it's a system that got set up by Dallas in the late 80s, early 90s. You can look at those trade day value things and just see what it would take, to get from the 15th or 16th pick up to somewhere in the top 10, right? And you can see exactly what their recommendations are. It's never concrete, but they're always fairly close in the value of that. Hard to say, though, man, because each draft class is valued differently, and that's the thing. How do you feel about the announcement that Brandon Brooks is retiring? I don't think that's been an official announcement. That was kind of a rumor spread. I haven't seen anything official from anybody yet. I mean, I'll look after the live stream, but I didn't see anything official that he was actually retiring. Just more so a rumor that it could potentially occur. There's also rumors that Brian Flores and Jim Harbaugh are interested in the head coaching jobs. I'll believe it when I see it. I hear you, Blue. I hear you, Blue City. Look, I think it's a good thing for you guys. Not a good thing for Philly. I mean, I would have loved for you guys to have kept him there. But I told you had a coaching problem, man. I really loved your defensive coordinator. I liked Patrick Graham a lot. I didn't think you had the right guy at head coach. And I was pretty vocal about that. I just didn't think you had the right guy at head coach. Richie said, where can John Hightower get reps in the offseason? Can practice squad players play in the USFL League? I believe so, actually. I think they can. What's up, Big Bird? You said, just give me a contact balance back in this draft and I'll be happy. Jake Gets Cake said, also, I think they overlooked Dickerson's ACL issues because Stoutland really wanted him. That's true. It depends on how much your position coach and your coaching staff is beating the table for a player with health concerns. I think that's fair to bring up, too. So if Moorhead wanted Rager, why can't he get him to understand his problems in man coverage? Jeffrey, I don't know. I can't answer that. I have no clue, man. I mean, sometimes it's not necessarily the coach's fault, right? A guy just doesn't get it. It's disappointing that we're now 2 years into his career as a professional athlete, and he's still doing the same hesitation step that got him knocked off of his routes in college and the pros. I don't know why it hasn't progressed, man. I can't give you a legitimate answer. I really don't know. Richie said, with the draft, needed positions or best player available. Richie, I think the best way to handle it is to get into the offseason, shore your roster up as much as possibly can be done, right? There's always going to be an element of like BPA mixed with the position of need, you know what I mean? But I think you want to shore it up to that way you don't have to be put in a position to reach for a guy, right? So you're a little bit closer to that best player available thing than position of need. You know what I mean? Bringing back guys like, I hate to say it, I'm not saying Alex Singleton should be the plan. But if you miss on a guy, you don't feel like, oh, crap, we got to reach for this dude now in the third round. That's clearly a fourth or fifth round talent. You don't have to do stuff like that. So, I mean, it's tough. It's a tough situation when you do that because you got to spend money to do that. And who knows how much interest some of these guys will have across the league. I think that's the other side of things, right? And I do think you're going to have some areas of need that I don't think you're going to shore up just easily in the offseason. Defensive line, right? I like Ugba a lot, the pass rusher from Miami. I would love to get him here in Philadelphia to pair up with Josh Sweat. That's going to cost you money. That's not a small investment in the offseason. That's a big investment, right? So if you look at it from that perspective, I'm not too sure you're going to find a pass rusher for a value, in terms of the contract cost. It becomes tough, Richie. I mean, it becomes really tough to address that particular position group because Raekwon Williams didn't get that contract, that futures contract yet. Maybe he comes back and we do sign that futures contract. They have Marvin Wilson. Marvin Wilson is, I think he's a good player. A lot of upside to him. Hasn't really panned out yet, though. Cameron Malview, thought he had a pretty good productive season when he got in games for the Eagles. I thought he was a little better than what I was anticipating him being. He's 27 years old already. He's on a futures contract. Secondary. I mean, let's just talk about the secondary, Richie. I mean, Andre Chachere, Marcus Epps, Tay Gowan, Anthony Harris, who's a free agent, Avonte Maddox, Rodney McLeod, free agent, Zach McPherson, Steve Nelson, free agent, Josiah Scott, Darius Slay, highest paid player on the team, Kerry Vincent Jr., Kayvon Wallace. It's hard, Richie. It's really hard to shore up everything. So I definitely think there's going to be some places where you're probably going to have to. You're going to have to probably go a little BPA there. And then you're going to have to tie it into that position of need. Because I just don't know that you can shore up everything on the defense in free agency or by just maintaining a couple of guys. Steven Nelson would help us out tremendously. Bringing back Steven Nelson on a very team-friendly deal, if we could get him for just a little bit more than we paid him this year, you're not going to get him for that same contract. It's going to cost you a little more. But if you can get him for about $5 million, $6 million, I might take the chance on that, even though I don't expect him to be here long term. Which means you clearly are not going to sign him early, right? Because he's going to want a contract with some guaranteed money in it and probably a little bit of longevity potential to the contract, right? 3 years, something like that. So that's probably a guy you circle back to if the interest isn't really there for him. You got a point, Richie. There's a point to what you're saying that I think is complex to get around to. Blue City said the Houston Texans just finished their interview with Jonathan Gannon. Yeah, don't get these guys excited, man. Blue City, don't do that, man, because I'll be answering Jonathan Gannon questions for the next 45 minutes. Hey, who is your favorite wide receiver in this draft? Oh, that's tough, man. I'm not to the point of saying I got a favorite wide receiver. There's a couple of guys that stand out to me. Williams from Alabama stands out to me. Treylon Burks from Arkansas stands out to me. London looks like he might be something. Pickens from Georgia. Man, when he was healthy and you see his film, he was really good. Like, that's a dude that it's kind of risky because the Eagles don't have a great track record at taking, you know what I mean, risk at wide receiver, Messiah. But I don't know, man. I think I'd support them if they did that. You know, there's a few guys that stand out to me, but I think there's some underrated guys in terms of the mid rounds, third, fourth, even fifth round if their value drops. I hate to say this name, but Romney, the young man from BYU, I think is underrated. There's his name is slipping my mind right now, guys. So if you guys want to look it up and put it in the comment section, the young man who plays at, he's a wide receiver. He plays at, crap. The heck's the name of the school? It's slipping my mind now, guys. I hate this. Not Idaho. It's, dang man, I'll get back to it, guys. There's another guy like Romney that's a mid-round guy. I think he's a really good-looking prospect. He plays at a smaller school. Nevada. He's the wide receiver from Nevada. I think he's a little undervalued. I think he could be, you know, a guy that you take in the mid-rounds and develop on the back end of your roster that might have some potential upside later on. Christian De Cruz said, I could not agree more on Hightower. If Rager was given 2 years to show nothing, give John at least one full season. Brooks needs to retire. Ain't played a full season in like 2 years. We don't want him to retire, Hurt season. It would mess us up financially. That would tear us a new one if he retires financially. I know it's early, but what round do you see David Bell going? It's an excellent question, man. I don't really know yet, Big Birds. When I make my top 100 list, I'll probably put round evaluations in that for everybody. I don't know exactly where I would place them quite yet. 3 years. I respect that. I hear you, Blue City. Moorhead has to go. You guys are down on the Moorhead stuff, huh? You guys are ready to get rid of him. It's been 3 years, Mad Hatter. What are we still paying this dude? Waste of money. Gate City, you know what would be funny if the Eagles jump us in this upcoming draft in 2022? It definitely add to the drama of New York and Philly. What's up, Cal? He said, I just hope they don't do nothing out of the ordinary. I don't know where I was going with that one, Cal, with the picks. Well, you know how we are, Cal. I'm not going to try to reassure people that something stupid won't happen. You always got to be a little cautious here when we're talking about the Eagles. Blue City, they finished that interview yesterday. I believe we had a chance to sign Hines Ward for wide receiver coach, but chose Moorhead. I believe you're correct, actually, show enough. I think that was Hines Ward was like the assistant wide receiver coach with the Jets, wasn't he, at that time? What's up, Terrence? He said, I would love to see you calling the plays, coach. I think that the play designs are good. You know, just judging it from all 22 access guys, I think Nick's pretty good at designing plays. I think where Nick has to grow as a coach, it comes down to the way you manage the game from a play calling perspective. I think his game management brings up some issues at times, like where he's talking about, like, yeah, we had guys open. There was things that got missed in this game, but you know, I didn't involve a top 10 pick early enough in the game, and that kind of hurt us. Like, that's a game management issue to me, right? Where he talks about we got to chill a little bit on the criticisms of Jalen Hurts, because people need to understand I made a mistake in terms of the alerts. You know, Jalen Hurts was checking into the alerts at the appropriate time, but the coaching staff failed him in terms of having a proper outlet against the pressure. That's a game management issue. You get what I mean? Like, he's got to get better at the game management side of things. Richie said, but with Coach Moorhead, all the wide receivers, with the exception of Devontae Smith, got major issues. Moorhead could not motivate Fulgham to practice. However, neither could the Dolphins. Exactly, Richie. That's the complex issue here, isn't it? That I don't know how good or bad Moorhead is as a coach, because it's not like he's had a world of talent around him. But we've had a lot of young guys where he had his opportunity to put his imprint on them, and it didn't work. And it's hard to judge that kind of stuff, guys. It really is. Gate City, if we hire the guy from Kansas City as a GM for the Giants, do you think Eric Bieniemy might be the head coach for the Giants? It would either be Bieniemy or it would be Mike Kafka. It just depends on what your guys' preference is in terms of the coach. I would take a guess. But to be fair, Blue City, I'm making an assumption that the director of player personnel, only has connection to the Chiefs coaches. he might have connections to other coaching staffs too. You know what I mean? So it is a little, presumptuous of me to make that assumption, but I would think that that's what it would indicate. Red Eagle said, if Kyle Hamilton falls to 10, would you move up to the Jets to get him? Sure. If Joe Douglas would allow us to do that, absolutely, because we can use that type of playmaker at safety. What's going on, Saison? How you doing, buddy? Jeffrey says, Steve, we all wish we could have the defensive coordinator from the Giants, but who do you think will be a good replacement for Gannon? He is available, isn't he, Jeffrey, though? Because they all got fired, I believe, unless the Giants retain him. I guess they still technically have his contract, right? Because they only really fired the head coach. So maybe they keep him there because I guess he still technically is under contract. But I'm hoping y'all don't do that to us, Big Blue. I would like to steal Patrick Graham from you guys. Look, the other guys that are major candidates, Jeffrey, we talked about this a little bit yesterday. Vic Fangio is a 34 dude mostly, but I just love his defensive mind. We would have guys that didn't fit, and it would be a big-time overhaul, and it may not be pleasant his first year in Philly defensively just because of what you would have to do. But I love that guy's defensive mind, man. He's such a brilliant defensive mind, Vic Fangio is. Mike Zimmer is a dude that you can almost plug and play. Not plug and play. That's the wrong way. Plug and coach, I guess. I'm not going to say Gannon's system is completely Zimmer's system, but the influences of Zimmer are all over Gannon's system, right? I mean, obviously Gannon is a combination of a few different guys. Eberflus, of course, Zimmer, and then what was the other guy's name? Emmett Thomas, I think, had a pretty big impact on him. I think he was Emmett Thomas, the former cornerbacks coach for the Eagles, by the way. I think he spent some time with him. So I think he's that system's a little combination, but of course Zimmer would make a ton of sense in terms of just being able to put a guy in there and stick to kind of what you were trying to do. And he's a veteran guy. He's been a head coach. He's been a defensive coordinator. Like, he's a veteran guy in there. Drew said, why not Avant at wide receiver coach? I think wide receiver coach does need to be looked at. Avant doesn't want to coach, Drew. He said that at the beginning of this year, because he was an assistant wide receiver coach last season. And he said that he didn't like the grind. He said the grind's a lot. It takes a lot out on you. And he just didn't want to do it. Williams is a slot Z, and Burks can't get separation. I hope we don't draft wide receiver in early rounds. I don't know what they're going to do, man. I'm not going to predict that they will or won't do something, Natiro. I think Williams can be better than just a slot, but I do agree with your assessment. He's a slot Z, meaning Williams does have some of the same exact kind of capabilities as Rager and as Quez Watkins. So you're kind of drafting the same kind of guy, but I think he's going to be really good at the next level, Natiro. Treylon Burks, I think, has the ability to be a bigger guy and can play the X for you. And I think that Treylon Burks can travel if you really wanted him to. I think he's got the kind of athleticism that translates to if you needed a tall slot, he could do it for you. I think that Treylon Burks is a higher end guy than people think. I think he's going to be pretty good. I think we can get Pickens in the third. I don't know if he's going to make it that far, Saison, but I mean, I don't know. It's early in the process, right? We don't know who's going to rise. We don't know who's going to fall. We're in January. By the time April gets here, it's going to look a lot different in terms of where guys are projected. Greg Ward, Rager, Hightower, JJ, even Quez at times underperformed. I wouldn't say that Quez underperformed. I thought he overperformed, over 600 yards receiving from what he was. But I agree with you that Quez is not perfect. He's not perfect. There's issues. There are times where the discipline's not there to complete a route. Like, that was a big problem this last game. And he's got to learn at the NFL level, you got to run through a route. The play's not over. Chris R. is exactly what I was thinking of, man. Romeo Dubs. Yes. This is exactly what I was thinking of. Red Eagle chiming in too. Thank you, guys. I appreciate that. It's exactly what I was thinking of from Nevada. I think it's a guy that you could get more towards the middle of the draft, maybe even day 3. It's possible. I don't know where these guys are going to stack up yet. I don't know who's going to go crazy in terms of wanting certain dudes and the values shoot through the roof. But I definitely think that Romney and Romeo Dubs should be guys that at least get some looks from scouts and they pay attention to. Matt Hatter said, I know a lot of people are blaming Wilson for his bad year on his injury, but Hurts played on an injured ankle for 8 weeks and might need surgery. It's true. I thought it saves us $16 million if he retires. No, you still owe the dead money. No, Natera, you still owe his dead money. So if he retires on you, let me just take a look real quick. So Brandon Brooks' contract. If he retires on you, you still owe the contract, unfortunately. Now, they could do some things like they did when you remember when Drew Brees retired. What they did is he didn't put his paperwork in until after June 1st. So that way they were able to divide the money up over a couple of years. So they could restructure his contract, convert more of his money from base salary into option-based money to clear more cap space for 2022, and then wait till June 1st to split it up over 2 seasons. So he could know he's going to retire, but not officially put the paperwork until after June 1st would be the best outcome you could possibly get, from Brandon Brooks in this situation. But if we're looking at if and I don't think this would happen, guys. This is the extreme case of it happening, right? If he's just gone by June 1st, right? So pre-June 1st, his dead money. So his cap number is 19.4. His dead money is 15 million. So now, honestly, guys, it's $3.7 million. So you're not going to really get killed by it. That's a good point, Natero. You're correct in that. You're not really going to get killed by it. But I'd still rather see them convert some of this money in June 1st, because you're gonna lose the player anyways if that happens. So you might as well get as much space as you can out of that. You get what I mean? I would wait to get as much space as I possibly could. Haven't done enough film study yet, Messiah, to weigh in on that one. What do you think about the Elliott Parks guy who says we're just elite quarterback playing an edge rusher away from a Super Bowl? Negative, man. He's tripping. He's tripping. I don't agree with that at all. I agree that would help, but I don't think it's as far. I'm sorry, Jeremiah, man. I missed your super chat, buddy. I apologize for that. Jeremiah with the $1.99 super chat said, question, would we be responsible for any cap hit by trading Brooks? So anything that you have in dead money, you are responsible for, Jeremiah. So you will pay your dead money on that, but it doesn't mean that you won't benefit from it. So if you were to trade him pre-June 1st, you're still getting $3.7 million back. So whether you cut him or trade him, you're getting that $3 million back. So the 13.4 would come off your books, but you still owe that prorated money of 5.9, and then the rest because he got a $32.8 million signing bonus basically from looking at the numbers. So you're still going to pay that. If you do it post June 1st, so here's what it looks like post June 1st. You're getting back $13.5 million this season against your cap, which is what you want. Opinion on Jimmy G coming here. I'm not a big fan, Natero, personally, of Jimmy G. I think teams really win in spite of him. He almost gave away that Dallas game. You remember when I said when we were doing the picks in the pregame show with Mike and Reese, they were saying that they felt like San Francisco was going to beat Dallas. And I said, I agree that it's a bad matchup for Dallas, but I'm also concerned because I know Jimmy G. Jimmy G almost gave that game away. I really don't want Jimmy G here. Taekwon said, is it possible to use Smitty like Chase from the Bengals? Also, since OBJ is a high point ball catcher, how would he fare out as an Eagle? In terms of the actual talent, Taekwon, I mean, Odell Beckham Jr. is a stud. The dude's a talented player. I don't know how he fits in terms of the culture and stuff, Taekwon. I can't really speak to that stuff because I'm just not, I don't know how guys respond to him or not. The dude's going to win. He's going to win in coverage. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard to say not to get a guy like that if the cost is right and it doesn't kill your locker room. I think that's the side of things you have to know. But hard to say, man. Got 63 in the chat. Let's get those likes up. Appreciate you, man. Where Jimmy G to where? Philly? Nope. Drew didn't like that one, huh? What's up, Big Play? He said, how Moorhead gonna catch wide receivers and he was trash a wide receiver? Please tell me, Gate. I don't think that just because you weren't necessarily productive in your career doesn't mean you don't understand the position groups. I mean, sometimes it's just, physical limitations to what a guy can do. Doug Peterson was a horrible quarterback, man, to be real, but he was a really good, play designer. He knew how to draw up plays. Frank Reich was a backup, career backup. Had one really shining moment in the playoffs in the 90s with Buffalo. Pretty good. He's pretty good at coaching. So, I mean, I don't think that necessarily has any impact on your ability to coach the game. But I think if you stick to the fact that we've had a lot of young guys and it hasn't worked. I mean, it's a tough assignment. There's no doubt about that. We put him in a really tough assignment, but I think all of us were kind of expecting there to be a little better production than what we've got so far. Blue City said, yes, we did retain Patrick Graham contract before Joe Judge got fired. That's not cool, man. You guys should have let him go. What are you doing? I mean, obviously, your head coach is going to get an opportunity to pick if he wants Patrick Graham as your defensive coordinator. If Patrick Graham were to hit the market and Jonathan Gannon, I'm not going to move on from Jonathan Gannon because I think you got to give the guy one more year. But if he were to get hired as a head coach, I'm telling you, Patrick Graham would be really high on my list if I was the Eagles. Charleston Rambo had 43 receptions, 743 yards, 5 tuds in 14 games at OU with Hurts. Yeah, he was originally slated to be a lot higher in terms Lit City in terms of his projections. Yeah, he did have some momentum last season. Not too sure what happened this year. I got to look at film before I can really speak to what's going on there. But yes, earlier on, he had a lot of momentum behind him. Drew said Steve Kerr is a better coach than Magic Johnson. Talent doesn't mean you can teach your coach. Yeah, exactly. Seattle Seahawks just fired their defensive coordinator, Ken Norton, yesterday. When will Nick Sirianni finish his exit interviews and evaluate what assistant coaches stay or go? Normally, Richie, they do the season-ending press conference. After they do the season-ending press conference, then that's when they come in with the front office and they do those exit interviews, and that's when we'll have an idea. I'm pretty sure they're waiting to see what happens with Gannon, to be honest, Richie. They're probably waiting to see if he gets the head coaching gig because now that's 3 teams, I think, that put in requests to interview him, right? Denver, Houston, and Minnesota, to my knowledge. All 3 of those organizations put in a request to actually interview him. So I think that they kind of have to wait to see how that turns out. What do you think about Jordan Davis, 6'6", 340 pounds? He's a defensive tackle, not a linebacker. They call him Godzilla. He'd be a good nose tackle. It's just a matter of conditioning. You know, you get a guy that big, nasty left hook. There's a couple of things that concern me. Doesn't mean he's not good at it. It means you got to look at the film on it. When you're 6'6" and you are going to potentially play nose, 340 pounds makes you hard to move off the ball, but your height makes you susceptible for dudes getting pad level on you. But to be fair, 340 pounds, like I said, man, it's not easy to push a dude 340 pounds off the football. It's just not, no matter how tall they are. Look, I know a little bit about Jordan Davis because of his connections back to Charlotte, but I'd have to really evaluate his film because he was not as productive from the sacks and pressure rates that I thought he would be in his college career. But nonetheless, he's flashed enough to where people have this dude as a top 12 pick right now early on. We don't want Pickens. I disagree, man. You want the guy that can have value. Jeffrey says, Steve, I was reading up on Dobbs. He would be a nice later round pick. I like him. I actually like this film a lot. Blue City said if the New York Giants falling fixes the offensive line in the first round, do you think the Giants will also get quarterback Malik Willis in the second round? Do you think Malik Willis is going to make it that far, Blue City, or do you think that teams are going to go crazy and start reaching for guys? I mean, look, you have an early second round pick, so if he does make it past the back end of the first round, you have an opportunity. There's no doubt about it. I mean, how would you feel about that? Malik Willis is very talented. There's talent there, but he played at Liberty, so the level of competition is going to be a little bit of a concern. And he did not play in what I would call an NFL offense. None of these dudes are playing in NFL offenses, obviously, but the scheme he's running is not very conducive to what you see in the NFL, and I think there's going to be some growth issues there with Malik Willis. But the attributes are there, right? The attributes are there, and it's not like, when you look at guys like the young man that got drafted out of North Dakota State that went to San Francisco where he only had one season of play. At least Malik Willis has a bigger resume in terms of that kind of ordeal. So you're kind of putting yourself in that, you know what I mean? You're in that situation if you draft him. Big Play say Drake London runs a 4.4, same as Justin Jefferson. Drake's 6'5". He's like 6'5", 215-ish, I want to say, somewhere in that area. Yeah, I mean, he was a freak athlete even in North Carolina, guys. He should be interviewing defensive coaches now in case Gannon goes. I don't think you can. I think there's like you can interview them underneath the guise of something else and then say, oh, we intended to do this. But you know what I mean? Like they're probably assembling a list at this point, Matt Hatter. I would think that what they're doing is they're creating a list of guys that they would want to reach out to in case of that occurring. I don't think it's going to happen, guys. I really don't. But at the same time, he's gotten 3 interviews. So it's like, you know what I mean? Like you can't say completely it's not a possibility. It is a possibility. By Super Bowl week, you expect any new head coaching hirings to be announced? Is Mike Kafka still a hot name as an OC candidate? Possibly. Mike Kafka, if Kansas City gets bounced before the Super Bowl, I do expect Mike Kafka to get a ton of interviews. There's going to be a lot of guys requesting Mike Kafka for an interview. Is Mike Kafka as good as it looks? Probably debatable, Richie. You know what I mean? Easy when you got Patrick Mahomes as your quarterback to look like a genius, right? Blue City said, question, are the Eagles organization patient with keeping quarterbacks or not? Tough one to say. I think it depends on how you analyze it, Blue City. I think it depends on how you analyze it. In one way, they value the quarterback position, and they will go for a guy if they think he's a franchise guy. They have no fear of trading away picks, trading away players. They'll do whatever they can do to get there, right? Think about how the Eagles had to move up to number 2 to get Carson Wentz and what we had to do to get rid of those picks to get that, right? We had to trade players. We had to trade picks. We had to do a whole lot of finagling to get there. Now, I think you can make a complex argument here that, you know, Donovan McNabb, Michael Vick, Kevin Cobb, you know, then you look at Sam Bradford, you look at Nick Foles, Carson Wentz, Jalen Hurts. That's a lot of quarterbacks over like a 10, 12-year span of time. Jimmy G also lost the Super Bowl against Kansas City. Hey, Steve, Carr from the Raiders or Hurts? Who would better serve the Eagles talent-wise as the quarterback? Oh, man. Derek Carr is a lot better than people think. Derek Carr, there's a metric that they use out there to measure like how a quarterback performs in terms of, you know, how much help are they receiving in terms of their production. And Derek Carr has the best marker in the NFL. With that said, Derek Carr has a tendency in big moments to make a boneheaded play. Is he better from the pocket? It's not even a question. He's so far advanced compared to Hurts. What do you have to give up? You know what I mean? Like, to me, it's like, what do you got to give up to get a guy like Derek Carr? Because I like Carr. I do. I'm not giving up multiple first-round picks for Derek Carr. You know what I mean? Eagles just landed. I still think that the best decision here is, I mean, look, if A-Rod's walking through that door, that's a different story. But I still don't think we're a quarterback away, guys. I really don't. I don't think that if you plug a quarterback in here, we're Super Bowl contenders. I don't buy that. I really don't. I still think there's so many different things that have to happen on the line. There's so many things that have to happen across the board for this team. So, to me, could you get there by free agent signings and stuff? Sure. But, you know, if you go get one of these top-tier quarterbacks, there is going to be money involved. It's going to affect your cap. And then you're talking about attracting a top-tier wide receiver to play with that quarterback. It's going to cost you some cap space, right? And then what's the rest of the roster? Like, are we just going to try to survive the defensive undercomings? Because, you know, we'd be really patchworking older dudes. You know, you're probably definitely bringing back Brandon Graham. You're definitely not doing anything with Fletch. He's going to be back. You know what I mean? Like, you have to kind of keep that core together. Who's your pass rusher? Like, I don't know that you're going to have the money to go get a pass rusher if you do that. Derek Barnett's walking out the door. I don't think he's going to sign back with Philly. You got Josh Sweat. That's great. Teron Jackson looked okay. Maybe you give Milton Williams a look as a 5-tech for the entire season. Maybe you give Milton Williams that opportunity. But, I mean, I just don't think that – I think that what you have to overcome would be tremendous if you're giving away picks on top of it all, right? Now, I did see that someone said, what if you could do 2 first-round picks? And I'm not talking about for Derek Carr. 2 first-round picks in this year's draft, 1 first-round pick in next year's draft. You know you got a franchise guy, so you're not worried about not having that first-round pick to potentially go up there and go get a guy for a future quarterback. And you can go get an Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson or Deshaun Watson if he clears his legal hurdles. I can understand that argument, but because at least you still have a first-round pick, you got a second-round pick, you got a third-round pick in this year's draft. You can try to build through the draft, get defensive players, yada, yada, yada. It's still risky, guys. It's not without a ton of risk. There's a ton of risk in that. Andrew said, right now, Hurts can't get the ball to his receivers. OBJ would go crazy and be a real nuisance if he did not get the ball. Clickbait, with all due respect to the man, Elliott Shore Parks. Comment seems it was written to incite a contentious reaction and get views. You're probably right, Richie. I mean, that's what they do, though. You know how it is, Richie. Like, their entire, like, the entirety of what they do is predicated upon, like, getting a reaction out of guys, right? I mean, that's how they generate clicks. They're not really there to educate. They're there to drive views. There's a lot of defensive players in the draft I want, however. We do have to wait and see what we do at defensive coordinator before selecting players. But Hamilton and Sauce is automatic. And I like both of those guys as well. The gambling hippie over here with the appreciation. Eagles have the best O-line coach and should all be grateful for as long as he is here. We should have a Jeff Stoutland day. I agree. Did Howie Roseman re-sign his contract yet? Not to my knowledge. But Moorhead is a position coach. He has to really literally teach them to be better wide receivers, and he was trash. Right, but there's still an aspect of talent to that, though, big player, right? I mean, like, to be fair, the more talented players are, easier it is to coach them. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you were just basing, like, oh, well, he took Devontae Smith and set the franchise record for receptions and set the franchise, you know what I'm saying? Like, for not for receptions, but for receiving yards. You know, that's not fair because, like, yeah, no kidding. You had an expansion of one game, and Devontae Smith was a top 10 pick, so the talent is different. You know what I mean? Like, I do think there's an argument to look at that from a talent perspective. Hurt Season said he agrees. Rambo had 79 catches for 1,172 yards and 7 tuds, averaging 14.8% at Miami in 2021. I always draft Adam Kern in Madden and move him to center. He's 6'7". Messiah said, I love Rambo when he played with Hurts. I see what you mean. Sorry, guys. I'm trying to click through these pretty quickly to catch up to some of y'all. My whole thing about Pickens is that it's not that I feel he's better or worse than Hurts. I just feel like no one has seen Hurts in the same system. No. You're thinking of the wrong player, Hurts season. We're not talking about Pick. You're thinking of Pickett, ETT. You're thinking of Kenny Pickett. We're talking about Pickens, the wide receiver from Georgia. You're on different players. Iron Maiden said, do you think we can get Roger McCreary in the second round? The corner. I don't know, man. I've seen him getting selected as high as the middle of the first round. Hard to say, man. Some people, different guys have them listed differently. I think as you get into pro days and combines and stuff like that, you'll get a better idea of where some of these dudes are going to stack up. Hard to say, man. I mean, I would love for that to happen. You're getting a guy like that in the second round would be exceptional value. Yeah, exactly, guys. It's true, Hurt season. That's true. I feel the same way about offensive coordinators with Brady. How can you say your staff is good when you have Brady at quarterback? Yeah, I mean, he's going to carry you a little bit, right? Will's got the Senior Bowl, NFL Combine, his pro day, and individual team workouts to impress scouts and GMs. Yeah, he's got a lot of time. Her season at Matt Hyder. Thanks for clarifying. I'm not big on college laugh out loud. It's all good, man. We knew that you were thinking of a different player. We got you. Remember, Chip almost gave everything to draft Mariota. Ugh. Boy, could you imagine if we passed on Lane Johnson for Mariota? And would you rather re-sign Nelson to have other draft capital or just sign McCreary? I mean, draft McCreary? I mean, I think you need to shore it up, man. I think you shore it up if you can. It's all about the contract value to me, Iron Maiden. What's the contract value of the player, right? Like, it's easy to say sign Steve Nelson, but for what price, right? That's how I look at it. Now, Steve Nelson, to me, if you can get him for certainly under $5 million, I think you sign a guy like that back to your roster, because he's not going to deter you from picking a cornerback, but he also gives you the confidence that you can go into the season and feel secure with what you got out there on the edges at corner. Check out George Pickens highlights. Yeah, I like him a lot, Matt Hatter. What's up, Hurt Season? He said, Gate, I was in Brunson's live yesterday and people was saying they didn't want Hurts due to his arm issues, then said they didn't want Carr because he's too stationary. Fans are confused on what they want. I don't know why they think Derek Carr is a stationary quarterback, because that's not a correct assumption. In order for Hurts to become a better quarterback, he has to stop running out of the pocket. I agree with that, Eagles' landing. I think he's gotten better at that. I do think that when he leaves the pocket now, he's not immediately looking to run. He's keeping his eyes downfield. But we're talking about reversing behavior, habits, right? And in order to do that, you need a lot of reps. You need a lot of work. You need a lot of practice. And he's got to get, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. You're right. He's got to stay in the pocket. And there's times where it's not that he's necessarily even leaving the pocket. Instead of gliding up and sliding outward the way you're supposed to work and maneuver the pocket, he's fading back. And that causes all kinds of base issues from throwing the football. It's fixable. It's very fixable. But you're always going to have in the back of your mind, hopefully he doesn't revert back to these bad habits. But yeah, I mean, you're right. You're definitely not wrong in there. And I don't think it's necessarily, like, to add nuance to what you said here, I don't think it's necessarily when there's no pressure. I think he got better at that aspect of things to where he mistook the leverage that the tackle had. And then, there was that early in the year where he would mistake the leverage, think that there was more pressure than there was, and he would, evade the pocket. I think he got better at that as the season went on. But I think when there is pressure, like what Tampa Bay did to him, he's got to learn how to work that pocket. He's got to learn how to work the pocket versus pressure. What's up, Cree? How you doing, buddy? He said, based on how Philly is built, why would Aaron Rodgers select over another team? I'm not saying he would or wouldn't, Cree. I'm saying if you could get the guy through the door. I'm not saying that it's a probability of that happening. I'm saying that when you're judging giving up that kind of draft capital, I'm only really interested in a few players. And one of those players, legally speaking, is just not a possibility right now. But yeah, I mean, if you had an opportunity to sign Aaron Rodgers, I'd give you 3 first-round picks for Aaron Rodgers. But my real assumption here, or my real not assumption, but the way I analyze this, Cree, is that even if you land Aaron Rodgers, are you going to be good? Yeah, come on, man. Of course you're going to be good. That dude will make any receiver look good. But in saying that, are you winning a Super Bowl here in Philly with Aaron Rodgers with this team? Probably not. Probably not. You're giving away an arsenal of picks to do that. And I still don't think it's the right move. But if the roster was here in place and we were a quarterback away, I would mortgage our future to get Aaron Rodgers to win a couple of Super Bowls. Sure. Big Red said, didn't Drew Brees take 3 years to come into his quarterback play? I'm 50-50 on Hurts, just being fair. I don't think Drew Brees is the right one to look at, but yes, he did. I think the better comp, because of the struggles that are similar, people don't like it. It's like, oh, he's got so much of a better arm, but it has nothing to do with the problems that are going on. Josh Allen is the comp, Big Red. Josh Allen had the same exact problems that Jalen does. He threw from a very flawed base on passes over 20 yards. He couldn't hit early on in his career on that. Then all of a sudden in 2020, it clicked for him. Was really bad against pressure. He got bad from his rookie season into his second year. He actually got worse at pressure. He had a 33 freaking grading versus pressure his second year in the league. I mean, it literally got worse for him. He struggled to see coverage. He could not read coverage early on. He put the work in. He put the time and work in. I can't predict that those results are going to be the same for Jalen Hurts. It's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that we can't assume that a dude is cooked just because he had a rough outing. It just means there's concerns. If those things don't get better, you're in a lot of trouble. But, ultimately, I don't know. I can't say either way. Saison said Smitty had 916 receiving, Goddard had 830, and Quez a sneaky 647. When if Jalen develops into a better passer year 2, we have 3,000-yard receivers. Dude, that would be, man, we put up 3,000-yard receivers. That's really something to celebrate. Matt Hatter said Carr's been in the league 7 years, and this is his first playoff year, and he looked bad. Yeah, Matt Hatter, but to be fair, I wouldn't say he looked bad. They were down to the last play of the game. I think he looked better than saying he looked bad. He looked bad on that play to end the game. I have no clue what he was reading. To be fair, I haven't looked at the all-22, but I'll be honest with you, Matt Hatter. I didn't know what he was reading on that play. It just seemed like a really bad decision from the TV copy. Might make more sense if you see exactly what was going on with the all-22, but I thought he had an overall really good game. I just thought that play was like a perfect summation of what Carr is, which is a really good quarterback, that if it ever clicked in those moments, he's got an opportunity, but it's not clicking in the moments and the opportunities yet. Blue City said, this is just my opinion. The Buccaneers have not won Super Bowl since 2002. Tom Brady came. They won the Super Bowl. Do you think Tom Brady can help losing teams become Super Bowl champions? No, I think the roster has to be there because we saw that kind of downplay itself in New England, right? So we're towards the end of the New England. They weren't going anywhere without rebuilding that roster, and Tom was not waiting for that to happen. So I think the right circumstances still have to be there, Big Blue. We need a bigger wideout and a running back like Jordan Howard. Miles too small. I definitely agree with you that we need to still upgrade the offense. It's not like it's a finished product. Eagles Atlanta said Howie Roseman and Sirianni are speaking today at 11 a.m. for their postseason press conference. Thank you for telling me that, Eagles Atlanta, because I'm going to make sure I can catch that. I want the cornerback from Cincinnati, Ahmad Sauce Garner. He's a good player, man. Steve, what would your ideal draft be in the first round? Is it defense or offense? Defensive heavy draft overall. Best player available when you're talking about your first and second round picks. You take the guy that you think can be an impact player. I don't care if it's offense or defense. You've got to hit on those picks. You got to get guys in the building that can help you win games. I would prefer for this to be a more defensive heavy draft, though. What's up, Michael? He said Smitty, Ridley, Rambo, Quez, and Rager would be a big upgrade at wide receiver. I think Rambo will be there in round 2. Dean or Lloyd, which one would you draft? I think Nakobe Dean is the more athletically gifted guy, James. I'll take either one of those guys. They're both good football players. They both are clearly help us upgrade the linebacking core in Philadelphia. Gate, have you had a chance to look at quarterback Tyler Shaw out of Texas Tech yet? One game so far. What I saw from the one game, and this is not a complete analysis showing off, you got to look at more than one game. Very prototypical quarterback. Big guy, 6'4". I could tell he's like 6'4", 6'5" just by watching the film. Big dude, big dude. Has some issues with his stride. Little bit of issues with his stride. Definitely running that air raid type system there. You could definitely tell. We'll see. I mean, I got to get a little deeper into it, see it against certain competition. I haven't watched American Underdogs yet, Blue City. I haven't. First round picks will be D-line, O-line, and wideout. Just from the way I see the front office drafting. You might be right, gambling hippie. I mean, Terrence Gates for OC or TC. Appreciate that, guys. I'm hearing that quarterbacks now have a choice which team they want to play for. A lot of them have stuff built in their contracts, unfortunately, Blue City, to where they can basically control destinations and trades. Gates, do you think that the Eagles would draft for need or best player available? Combination. I think it'll be a combination. Like I know that's not a straightforward answer, Cree, and I apologize, but it's complex. You set your draft board, and of course your positions of need are going to factor into the way that you're putting some of these dudes on your draft board. I definitely think that your defensive line, your secondary, and your safety core, even linebacker to an extent, linebacker at least has youth. I definitely think that they're probably going to stack some guys higher that they may be looking at those dudes who may not be better overall players in other position groups, to be quite honest. I do think there's a distinct possibility that happens. Denzel Washington out. I love the play on the Philly 500. I say we get Roger McCreary, Devin Lloyd, or Nakobe Dean, and trade the third pick for a 2023 first to Pittsburgh, who will probably want Pickett, the third first-round pick. Jeffrey McIntosh, do you think Hurts will reach out to Allen and ask him what to do to get better? I don't know the nature of the relationship. I do know that Hurts is really close to Peyton Manning. Him and Peyton have a really good relationship, apparently. It'll be interesting to see what he does in terms of the offseason. He's been working with Quincy Avery as his private quarterback coach. Does he stick with Quincy Avery? Does he go out to California and work with Palmer? What does Brian Johnson do with this young man? You know, Brian Johnson's not a private quarterback coach, but maybe Brian Johnson has some dudes in mind. I don't know, man. It's hard to say, Jeffrey. Tom Brady chose the best team without a star quarterback to go to. I agree. Pressure in the pocket, not have Herbig, and not fully trusting Opeta at right guard. Did Hurts feel he needed to leave the pocket early? If Toth was not placed on IR, would Toth have started instead of I still think they were going to play Opeta, to be honest. But it's hard to say, man. I mean, you can make that argument, Richie. I understand what you're saying. But at the end of the day, you know, the correct decisions in some of those situations was still to glide up and slide out instead of fading back. You know what I mean? I get what you're saying, that there's complexity to the situation, but you know, the correct movement still wasn't made in the pocket. Cree said, is there a running back that impresses you in this draft that you would like to see in an Eagles uniform? There's a few dudes here and there, Cree. I mean, I'm going to get into that. I'm going to grade all these guys by position groups. That's all coming up, guys. The 803 Hitman said, JJ will be gone, but Rager will be here next year. You're probably right. Do you think that they will do Rager the same way they did JJ and put him on special teams exclusively or work him into the rotation? I think that's what they should do, the 803. I think that's exactly what they should do. What they will do, who knows, man? You know what I'm saying? Frankie Fisher, what's up, buddy? He said, I'd go with Marlon Mack for the backfield and grab Robinson for wideout. I'm not a Hurts fan at all, but if he gets the job, these two could help him make life 10 times easier. I like where your head is with it in terms of trying to look at it rationally of what players make the dude that's going to be behind center better. I think it's a very rational way of looking at it. Richie said, Steve, your hidden gem of Coyote Owasika. Sorry, guys. What do you expect of him in his second year? Full-time start. I'm joking, guys. He's going to have a hard time making this roster. Probably practice squad again. I would love to see him. You guys know I'm driving that bus, man. I'm the Coyote Owasika fan bus driver. Probably a practice squad guy, to be honest. I would love for him to make the back end of the roster, but I also anticipate the Eagles are going to look into the draft to get guys. What's up, Prem? He said, Gate, did you hear what Chad Johnson said about Jalen Rager? Yeah, he was going to go off in his third year. I hope he's right for the sake of the Eagles, man. You know what I mean? Like, I'm an Eagles guy, so of course I want him to do well. Gate, you saw that 6'9" quarterback, Nate Cox. I'll take him. I didn't, man. I didn't. Drew, what's up, buddy? You have a website? I do. I think it's in the link down below. If it's not, I'll link it after the live stream, Drew. I do. I got a couple guys that are writing for it. Sam's coming up with an article. Sam, the artist formerly known as S4L on YouTube. Sam's writing an article for it. Hunter writes for me. I write there. You know, so we got some guys that are putting forth content there. But yes, guys. Insufferable Vegan. Interesting name. Would you rather or even consider to get Jameson Williams or Drake London if they were available? Oof. That's a very tough decision. I'm going to say Drake London just because I think Drake London fits the need more. Not necessarily that he's the better player. Jameson Williams, I think, is going to be really good in the NFL, guys. But I do feel he's a little similar to Rager and Quez Watkins in terms of being a motion Z and then a slot. I think that's what he is in the NFL. But I do think he's going to be quite good in the NFL, to be honest, guys. All right, y'all. We are closing in on 10:44 a.m. An hour and almost 40 minutes on this live stream, guys. I'm going to jump off here because 11 o'clock for you guys that are here, 11 o'clock, they are going to do the end of season press conference. If you've never watched any of those before, they're always entertaining. I don't know if my guy Mike is still in the chat, but I remember a couple of years ago, Mike sent me the meme of Doug Peterson at the end of season press conference twirling a water bottle in his mouth. I mean, it was the most disengaged I've ever seen a head coach at an end of season press conference. And he was like, yo, Gate, can you explain this? No, I can't explain that. Can't explain that, Mike. Sorry, Philly Mike. Can't explain that one. But they're always entertaining as crap to watch, guys. You'll get to hear some stuff about the coaching staff. They're going to talk about the way the season ended. They'll probably face some questions about the draft and free agency. It'll be interesting. Howie will talk more than likely. I don't know if Lurie's going to talk at the end of, the end of season press conference. Normally he doesn't, but you never really know. You know what I'm saying? We'll have to see, guys. I'll read a couple more questions before we jump off of here real fast. James Gatling, what's up, buddy? Said Mike Williams or Calvin Ridley? Who's the better player, Calvin Ridley? Who's the better decision for the Eagles? Hard to say. I think Mike Williams is the better fit in terms of what we need. Calvin Ridley is a really good separator. He still can win in the NFL, and he'd be good. Can you control his rights? You trade for him, you get him on a fifth-year option at $11 million. Can you make him stay in Philly, or is it just a one-year rental? You know what I mean? Nick and Howie's press conference today. Will you do a reaction by tomorrow? Yes, guys, I'm definitely going to react to that. I'm going to be sitting down with a pad and recording what I hear said and then looking into stuff. Thank you, Gay. Hey, no problem, guys. I appreciate every one of y'all that tuned in, guys. All right, y'all. I appreciate y'all so much. Tomorrow morning, 9:05 a.m., I'll be back, guys. You guys got like 14 minutes for the press conference kicks off. All right, y'all. I appreciate you.